Very well, guys. Welcome to this video for the week. Um, last time we have talked about needs and abilities. We had already explained. We have given some examples about what might be able to read. Talk about poetry, well, different things. So we're going to finish here with two important aspects. First of them being the ability to read fluently. So please take into account that it's quite different to read the exercises in a book or to read your notes or to read what the teacher writes in the board. That is not extensive reading. Yes, an extensive reading is an ability that students are going to require in order to somehow do effectively the reading or complete the reading of the books that you're going to assign, the text, the poems, whatever. Okay, so please, I want you to do an exercise right now. Okay, so I am going to give you 1 minute. Okay, and you are going to read as many words as you can. Okay, I know that this seems silly, and I know that not everybody will do this, but please, if you want to get a little bit out of this class, do it. Okay, so take the book that you're reading right now, and start reading the page that you're going to read. I mean, the last one that you read, and you are going to read non-stop, without stopping, without looking in the dictionary, without doing anything else. You're going to do that right away. Okay, I'll let you know when to stop. You're going to read for 1 minute. I am not going to ask you to read faster than you normally read. Just try to read in the same way that you read. You're not going to sort of read faster or anything like that. Just go ahead and do that. Okay, so please, whenever I say stop, you are going to stop right there. No matter if you have to stop in mid sentence and you didn't finish the sentence or didn't finish the idea, you're going to stop right there. Okay. So if you're ready, I tell you 1, 2, 3, when to start and when to stop. Okay. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, now. And stop. Okay, so please, what you're going to do right now is to count how many words you were able to read in that minute. Okay, I gave you exactly 1 minute to read, and you are going to make the calculation of how many of them. Okay, so please just count one by one all of them. Yes, no matter the articles, if they are verbs or if they are they, are, and prepositions, nothing like that. Like count them complete and do that. Okay. So guys, a regular reader, let's say an average reader, is supposed to read a minimum of 200 words per minute. Yes. Well, this depends on many things, or there are many things that may sort of affect your final result, right? Like your final calculation. Maybe the book is really difficult. Maybe the book has a very complicated vocabulary. Maybe the sentences are very long. Yes, that will be, or those will be reasons for you getting less than 200 words. Yes, that's a possibility. Maybe you got much more than 200 or a little bit more. Yes, also maybe in those cases that the book has simple vocabulary, or that has words that are really short. Yes, a lot of repetition of the and are, is. Yeah, so that can affect and help you read a little bit uh, faster, and also to help you read more words per minute, right? But well, this diagnosis, that I want you to keep that number in mind. Yes, because let's say that if you got 190, 150, 160, well, that will be fine. You're still in the average, right? But let's imagine that you took 100 or less than 100. Worry a little bit, yes, because you're reading much slower than you were supposed to, especially for a teacher, right? So if that's your case, I would recommend that, if not for the sake of reading, at least for the sake of your profession, try to practice a little bit in order to have let's say, a better performance in that. Now, it's not only about the quantity of words, right? Did you understand what you read? Or would you require, I mean, if right now I was there by your side and tell you, hey, Mr. or Miss, can you please give me a short summary of what you read in the last minute? It is not a thing of memory, no? Because how can you forget something in a minute? It is not a thing of concentration. Hopefully you are concentrated enough. You are in your house. You have the possibility of doing this exercise whenever the conditions are better, right? So if you have difficulty understanding what you read, I would also recommend that you try to practice this, because it's really, really important, especially for our profession. We're reading all the time, maybe not stories, maybe not novels and tales and poetry, but for sure we're required to read reports, required to read a lot of different things, right? So hopefully, if you have a diagnosis that was not so good, well, this is a self-evaluation process in order to do it. If you didn't do it, if you were just skipping the video until this part, well, I sincerely recommend you to do it, yes, to self-evaluate yourself. If not now, maybe later when you have more time, or more disposition, but it's a good exercise to recognize yourself. Now, that is what an average reader more or less is supposed to read. If you're a good reader, you can read the double, yeah, about 400 words per minute, and that is very important, right? Because the ability of reading at higher speeds, and most importantly, like getting to know the meaning of what you read, or being able to grasp the sense of it, and being able to replicate it and summarize it and tell it to somebody else, and somehow having a discussion about it with your teacher, with your classmates, with your friends, is going to make the experience of reading more enjoyable. Isn't it frustrating when you dedicate, I don't know, 2 hours to reading something, and then in the end you are not able to get anything, or in the end you will have to return to the beginning because you couldn't learn it, because you couldn't understand it, because you are not sure what it said? It is frustrating, right? And imagine that this exercise is done throughout a whole semester, or throughout a whole period in the school. Well, this will be frustrating for the kid. Dedicating, I don't know how long, let's say there is a very disciplined guy and dedicates an hour of reading. I don't think so, right? But dedicates an hour of reading daily, and then the day of the lesson, when he's going to receive some questions or do some activity about the book, well, he is not able to respond properly, right? So you need to determine this, okay? So I strongly recommend that you do this with your students before assigning a book, and in that way you are going to assess in a more efficient way their ability to read a lengthy book, or a short book, or a book of a certain amount of pages. Yes, and that's simple math. You can say if he reads 200 or 100 or 90 or 80 or 10 words in a minute. So he will be able, or they will be able to read this book of about 100 pages or 80 pages or 50 pages, or I don't know. Yes, seems very instrumental, but it's actually very good. Yes, and it's effective. I have done that with my students in school. I was a school teacher for about 8 years, and I really tell you, these work wonders for me, especially because I struggled a lot at the beginning. Yes, it was difficult to have the commitment from them, to have their dedication, and that's it. In the end, it wasn't perfect, but at least it was much easier for me and for them. Fine. Now, how can you measure groups? Because now you did it with an individual, with one person. So there are different strategies, right? Mm, and you can look online to even instruments or tests that are standardized, and that give you like a even more specific result. Yes, but for me, I think that again, in my experience, something that you can do with your own resources without paying more, or without doing a lot of effort, or getting like the students stressed out of another test. It will be some of the ones that I will mention in a moment, right? So the first one could be timing page turning in sample student, right? So give them some time to free reading during the class. I don't know, depending on how long do you have. You dedicate 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour to free reading. You ask them to bring the book, or if you have the book physically, you give them to them, or their photocopies, or their digital versions, whatever, right? And you are going to time the page turning, like how long do they take to turn one page to the next, in sample students. So normally you have a minimum of 3 levels in a classroom, right? You have a student who is a really good reader, a really good, let's say, academic students, if we can call them that way. Yes, they are always like willing to learn, willing to somehow get advantage. They are dedicated. They normally uh, are distinguished for always receiving the recognitions of the schools, etc. Right? So they have a very high proficiency usually, right? So time them, yeah. Time how long a student like that, the one that you have, the two that you have, the five that you have, turn the page. Yes, it may be a minute, it may be 2 minutes, it may be 5 minutes, or something like that. Then you have the student who is in the middle. Yes, the student who may struggle a little bit. He doesn't get the best grades. He doesn't always answer correctly. He doesn't always have the homework all the time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But they are over there in the middle, right? So time them. Time a couple of them. Let's say that logic will tell that the student in the middle of the performance takes longer. It is not always the case. Sometimes we have students in different levels of this artificial scale that I'm proposing, that have like different reading skills, and that the ones in the middle, or the ones that I'm going to mention last, are better readers. That may happen, but we're doing a generalization over here, right? And then time the students who are not so good in terms of academic aspects, right? Who struggle with the topic, who doesn't really exhibit a lot of command of the language, right? All these different things. Again, this is a prejudice, but it could be like that. It may happen that way. The first will take 1 minute, the second will take 2 minutes, and the other will take 3 minutes. I'm just saying whatever number, right? So you make an average, right? Add them and divide them by 3, and that is the average amount of time that your students are going to require to turn the page. And then you can analyze how many words at the page. Well, there are different things that you can do with this information, but it gives you at least a general idea of how they will face the book, right? Then another strategy that you can use for determining the ability to read fluently could be timing an entire chapter and then checking comprehension by setting some questions, right? So let's say that we can say we are going to read the chapter number 1. Everybody will read it. Yes, so you don't give them a time limit or you don't observe it. But then, well, you give them everybody, and you give them free time, and you will see that some of them finish first, some of them finish less, some of them even you decide to stop the activity and they have not finished, right? And that's it. And ask them some questions, very punctual questions about the chapter they read, okay? Now, questions like, what is the name of the main character wouldn't work, okay? Because they only need to read a paragraph in order to know that, yes? So ask them questions about processes, right? About feelings, about, let's say, putting themselves into the character, into the place of the character, right? Like, what would you have done? How would you have feel if, right? And that would require a deeper understanding of the book, and that would require deeper features than memory. So those are some let's say abilities or sorry, assessment ideas that we can use for doing something like this. Okay. Now let's imagine that you already have the evaluation, the result of this, and you already know that your students are good, more or less, or really poor in terms of reading. How can you maintain or improve this level of reading? Okay. Again, I am telling you since from my particular experience, there are a lot of studies that propose like more complex approaches, and even there are paid courses that you can pay some money, and they can help you or they can teach you how to read much faster. Yes, but you don't want to pay money. They don't have money. You don't have money, and hopefully the idea is that you help them somehow throughout what you do in school, not sending you somewhere else to spend some money for something that you could do yourself, and that is your job, right? So here we have a couple of methods that I want to share with you in the slide number 28. We have, for example, the technical methods, right, and the practice method. So let's talk about the technical methods. You will see that there are a couple. I mean, this is from a particular book that is even from the 76. Yes, 84 and 76. So this seems to be quite old, but I have employed many of them, and actually with current technologies, and in my personal case, they have worked really fine in most of the cases. Maybe you can come up with other ideas, or maybe you can look online and find other ones, or maybe you have received some other ideas in other courses. That's great, okay? But this is just a couple of things that I can mention. So let's talk about the first one. No? Use a device of some kind to cover up the words that the students read. Yes. So what you can do is to cover what they are reading. You can do that manually. Yes. With somehow a piece of paper or something like that. I have done it more effectively by projecting something in the classroom. Yes, with a video bin if I have one, if the school has one, or simply in a computer, my personal computer. I take it to the class and I can do that. If the students have their own, great, but normally they don't. So we can use all these different things. Even you can write the whole text in the board and then start erasing the words. Yes. So all of those are possibilities, right? Let's take a look at what they say over here. A traveling shade which progressively covers the words just read so that the student is unable to regress, to return. So those that I just mentioned, like covering it, like erasing it in the computer, erasing them in the, changing the color to transparent, for example, in the video bin, as you underline or highlight some of the content, or imagine that you just write a paragraph in the board. If your limitations are a lot, you do that, and then you start erasing the somehow the text. Well, the student will be unable to regress, to return, and he will be somehow forced to understand from the very beginning. Yes, that's a possibility. And then there are variations over it, right? like the second one. It says, I'm asked to move over the page which covers over a third or a half of a line at a time, forcing the student to guess at what is hidden. Yes, a lot of our, let's say, ability to read fast depends on our ability of predicting what is next. Yes, so imagine that we have these common mistakes that we sometimes commit. No, we are reading a text aloud, and we say, and so the word that is over there was presidential. Let's imagine, and so the presidential decree was announced. Imagine that is what the text said. But then we said, when we are reading, and so the presidential decree. Why does it happen? Well, for a variety of reasons, but for in terms of what we're studying over here, it is because you predicted what the text was going to say, and you said it or read it aloud before you even read it. Well, the problem in this case is that you predicted wrongly, yes? But most of the cases, if you are a good reader, if you have practiced this a lot, you do that. Yes, your brain knows what is the next letter, what is the next word, before you even know it. Yes, and that is going to speed up the process by about double or triple, right? If you can predict a lot of different words without making mistakes. So this ability can be cultivated, yes, by this. You covered certain parts of the text, complete words, complete phrases, or different things, and that is going to help you develop this speed. And well, that is what we can do. Now, those are technical methods, no? Then we have these other practice methods that it's like, let's say that the first one deal more with training and with forcing certain things into yourself. And then the other practice method has to do more with practice and with the possibility of getting better each time. Yes, getting better on the same task. So, for example, here we have the number one: set a series of texts of similar length and complexity, followed by comprehension questions, and slowly decrease the time allowed for reading each successive text. So imagine that you are going to select for your class 10 different paragraphs. Yes. And all of them have more or less the same complexity. Let's say that they are, I don't know, A2, right? You work really consciously or look online. There are many different materials that already tell you this text is level A2 or B1 or something like that. And you ask them to read, and they will do it, and you give them initially 10 minutes. And then you ask some questions, and they are supposed to answer correctly, right? Remember, saying questions, not the question, what is the name of the character? What is the name of the place? No, that doesn't work, okay? About something more, about comprehension, right? Then, you ask them to read the other paragraph that has more or less the same level, but then this time you give them 9 minutes. Same exercise, right? And then you do the same with the rest, and each time you decrease the amount of time that is allowed for them, right? That is a possibility. And then we have, for example, the second one: provide the class with sets of graded readers for them to read as quickly as they can, but at their own pace. Yes? So imagine that you're going to give them readers of let's say, when I say readers, I mean books or texts. And basically you give them that, and they decide what to do or somehow to read at their own pace, right? But you're going to tell them, okay, read it as quick as you can. And then in the end, you're going to ask some questions about them. And hopefully, if you do that every week at the silent reading time, you are expect to see some progress, right? If they are reading the same book or some sort of the same level of the material, hopefully they are going to improve throughout time. Yes, but this require persistence and require somehow being constant. Okay, very well, guys. So with this, we are done for the week. I am going to explain now the two assignments that we are going to have for this week. Okay. So let's say that the two assignments are the same. We are going to change the text. Okay. So for the first assignment, what you are going to do is that you are going to read one text that I am going to attach into the assignment number 1, and you are going to write to analyze. These aspects that we studied in the lesson of this week: the ability to read fluently, the students' needs and abilities. Yes, basically that's it. But you will see that you have a lot of things to analyze in there. It seems such as the linguistic level, the amount of background information, the interests and goals, the plots, the comprehensible characters, if it is poetry, if it has an immediate appeal, and finally the possibility of read that quick. Do you think that that material will be easily readable for them? That's it. So you have to, let's say, analyze these two categories, two macro categories, but within them you have many different little things to analyze. Okay, so do that. If you want to work in groups, you can do it. You can work in groups of maximum 3 people for this one. Okay, so you can either work on your own, or you can work with another 3 people. If you are going to work with these 3 people, you are going to remember to create the same document, put the names of all of you in the same documents, but everybody needs to upload it individually. You need to repeat the uploading, even if it's the same document. Yes, why is that? Remember, because I need to give you the grade individually. Even if it's a group work, everybody gets, I don't know, 4.5. I will give 4.5 to everybody, but in order to have the registration of the grade in the platform, you're required to do that. So please, if you're going to work in groups, do it that way. Everybody requires to upload it, like a repetition of the same work. It's not the best, but well, it's what the platform demands. That will be the assignment number 1. And the assignment number 2 will be exactly the same thing. Yes, analyze the ability to read fluently, the student needs and abilities. But this time you're going to do it with the book that you are reading. Okay, so basically, as I mentioned, it's the same exercise. The thing is that I'm going to do it first, or you have to do it first in the assignment number 1 with the text that I'm going to attach. That is a fragment of something, a couple of pages, and the other one will be with the book that you're reading. Please, it means that if for the last week you were supposed to read 10 pages, so for this one you must have an accumulated of at least 20 pages. You have, by this week number 2, you must have read at least the first 20 pages of the book. Okay, because that is what you're going to require minimum in order to write this. Of course, if you can read more, welcome, that will be fine. And that's it. Okay, so hopefully we were able to advance into these tasks, and you have enough material and enough theoretical information in order to advance and to complete these 2 tasks. Okay, so thank you very much for the attention. Remember, I'm always available for any question that you have. It's fundamental to watch these videos in order to complete the assignments, and that will be it. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Have a great day, night, afternoon, and see you later. Hugs. Bye.